Fox News Mideast and terror expert Walid Fares is here. Walid is also one of Donald Trump's foreign policy advisors. Walid, right here last night, and we just heard Ambassador Bolton talk about it, and also Kevin talk about it, is that we talked about how the caliphate in Iraq and Syria is getting squished, it's getting smaller, they're losing territory, but at the same time, the warning was, at least last night, that they were going to strike someplace, the soft targets. Now we see this. I don't know that this is ISIS, but it's certainly, you know, you can't help but be very suspicious.
Well, this is jihadists. We will know. We did the exercise maybe 3 times this year, unfortunately. It's a dramatic conversation. We will discover that this is a cell. It's a different cell from the one in Paris, from the one in Brussels. Gilles de Kerchove, that was mentioned now, the counter-terror, the EU, I met him 10 years ago, exactly. Gave him a book. And I mentioned to him that the continent is under threat. At the time, he wasn't sure. He thought these are marginals. Now, he made that statement. It means that Europe now is awakening to the fact that these are waves. What we saw tonight, what the French saw tonight, is actually one of the waves. What would that mean to me? Concern is, if this is a wave, there will be another wave, and there will be other waves. So to answer your question, the battle against ISIS in the region, yes, it has to be won. But what is happening right now is, even if ISIS goes down in the Middle East, Syria and Iraq, there is a network of jihadists in Europe embedded.
All right. This is obviously hit France. It's hit Paris, and then now Nice, which is it's on the French Riviera. Brussels and Belgium is, is not that far from Paris. I mean, at least some of it seems to be quite localized in that part of the continent. That's not to say that it's not going to happen other places, but is there any, why France?
First of all, because the demography of the jihadists is very large. The largest contingent of French jihadists, those who went to Syria and to Iraq, other places, is the largest, so demographically. So you could expect that almost mathematically. But there is something else. The French jihadists in their narrative have committed to actually break down French economy. So it's happening.
Catherine Herridge, who was just here moments ago, is now reporting to us is that that truck was going full speed, going right into that crowd. Just look at the size of that truck. It is huge. I don't know. I mean, it's going full speed into a crowd of those people. The death is now 73, and of course, it did have hand grenades. This is not an accident. I mean, of course, it's not. This is terrorism.
This is carnage provoked by a terrorist cell, individuals. My concern would be, what is the coordination level between these jihadists? I know we are confronting these pictures, but to me, my mind tells me, what is the level of coordination between the previous cells in Paris, the one in Brussels? Is this one linked to them? Are they all linked to ISIS or not? If they're not linked to ISIS, it's even more dangerous.
Well, I would expect that right now. I mean, they know who owned the truck. They know who rented the truck. I mean, they've done a lot of reverse engineering on that. They've got all that information right now. Unfortunately, they get all that information after 73 people are dead rather than before. I mean, that really is the big problem, is that is that they're great in investigating after terrorism is hit. The problem is, how do you prevent it before terrorism happens? And and that falls largely on our politicians, our leaders, and some responsibility on the citizens to speak up.
Absolutely. As you said, they're going to get to the bottom of this. They're going to get to the details, the names, the networks. They're not going to make a lot of arrests. That we know. But the next wave, what is the next? When is going to happen? So they need a change of policy. It's not just getting to know what happened. It's how to change it.
But okay, you're advising Donald Trump on this stuff. What do you actually do? I mean, we're all just outraged. We're horrified. We talk about how, this has got to stop. We say all these things. But what do you actually do when you've got this terrorist network that is spread out like a cancer around the globe, and soft targets are so incredibly easy? I mean, all you have to do is, as you see, drive a truck into a crowd.
Once the network is born and is operational, then there is nothing much you can do except on 2 fronts. Number one, making sure that the enemy in the region is defeated, utterly defeated.
That would be the caliphate in Iraq and Syria.
Absolutely, we're late 2 years.
So then, how do you get these cells?
Well, the cells operating in Europe needs a different kind of fight. As you just said, this is not a sitting army. This is not Mosul and Raqqa. These are networks that you need to fight, first of all, in counterterrorism, spying, but also in making sure that the next generation, we've been screaming about that for the last 10 years.
How do you do that?
Well, you're going to create, in the soft side of it, NGOs to move in to cut off the ideological input into the mind of these people. And the Obama administration, unfortunately, has not accepted the principle that we're fighting in ideology. That's what Mr. Trump is talking about. Now, to find a policy, he needs to be in government, not just as a candidate.
Okay, so what? Let's assume that he is president, and he says radical Islam, that he is fighting an ideology. Then what?
Then you move into finding allies in these communities. We don't have allies in these communities. You just mentioned how people should be monitoring the extremists. Are we organizing this?
It's not monitoring extremists, but I mean, you see things. I mean, every single time we have one of these, I remember covering I was down in Orlando and Mateen, and I remember getting an email from a viewer saying that Mateen had been subject to 2 FBI investigations, and that the media in 36 hours had found out more about him than the FBI had in 2 investigations. And that's because people are talking to us. We're learning things.
But our public, if you investigate how our public perceives this, they think it's about jobs. I think it's about economy, about foreign policy. So when they see something suspicious, they don't know that it is suspicious.
If someone comes in wanting to buy, 50 grenades, or if someone rents a truck and I say, what are you putting in that truck, and he goes, oh, C4 plastic. I mean, it's whether the guys in Boston were buying those pressure cookers. Nobody needs more than 1 pressure cooker. I mean, that's weird. I mean, they're just weird. I mean, every single time, or the person's made threatening statements, or he didn't like. I mean,
now you said something. Now you said something. There's a difference between the bomb and when somebody makes a statement.
Well,
the administration removed the ability of the public to understand that this is a statement. When they talk about the caliphate, about jihadism, you have groups in this town that say, oh, this will be Islamophobia if you investigate that kind of narrative.
Well, it's usually in conjunction with something else. I mean, and they're usually saying something, but they're also going out and trying to gather explosives. They're getting a truck full of fertilizer, and they're doing something.
Once you get to that position, it becomes police activity. It becomes citizen who is a soldier in the community. But what you need is to inform that citizen. The president should go on national TV and inform the public, how do you recognize these jihadists? If he does that, he gets 90% of the people who become part of that resistance.
What would you like to hear President Obama say tonight? Should he speak tonight? What should he say?
He should speak. He should be in solidarity with the French people, of course, but he should, break that barrier and say, we're dealing with an ideology. We're going to go to the bottom of this ideology, and we want the people to be aware of it.
I thought, back in for Charlie Hebdo, when all those world leaders marched together down there, I thought that, I thought that was symbolically very big, and I thought it was symbolically very bad that our president didn't go.
It was.
I think he's even admitted it now.
Now he did. What to do now, at a few months from the end of the administration, he needs to do a major symbolic act. I don't know what that would be.
Who's the biggest leader against terrorism now? Which nation?
Well, actually, civil societies in the Middle East are fighting, and now simple citizens around the world, online, offline. That's where the resistance is happening. The leadership must step in. Must step in.
All right, Donald Trump has said that he wants a temporary ban on Muslims. He may choose Governor Pence, who says that that is unconstitutional, and I think he used the term offensive in a tweet. Where do you stand on this?
Look, in 2015, Mr. Trump made that general statement in response to Paris, Brussels, etc., in California. But since then, he had speeches. And in these speeches, it was very clear that he was creating the framework of what he wants. He wants to shut down jihadism from coming to this country. He wants to make sure that we are aware of how to identify them. He has moved. So basically, after the convention, into the election, and after that, hopefully, he will be elected, then he's going to gather the agencies and ask the talents of these agencies and ask them, I need a new policy. This policy is not working. All
right. Well, here's part of the problem, is that a lot of people are radicalized here. I mean, and Mateen in Orlando is probably the best example, but he was radicalized here. You can't build a wall to the internet. You can't. I mean, the people are still going to communicate. They're getting inspiration. They're getting financing. They're getting an awful lot from the internet. It is creating people here within the United States who want to do harm. What do you do about that?
Greta, how do they radicalize? We always talk about radicalization. It's indoctrination. They go online, find those ideas flying. Just imagine, you want to intercept the ideas. You're going to destroy the idea in a discussion online. We don't have that infrastructure because we don't even call these concepts by their names. I have proposed this to Congress 7 years ago, that we need to work with NGOs online to do the battle online first.
Why don't they? I mean, if we all know that there are a lot of people who are recruiting, inspiring, and fundraising on the internet, and you've got the deep dark web, you've got all these, why aren't we attacking it in that direction more aggressively?
We are attacking at the last stage, as you just mentioned, when we know that they are moving with explosives, with weapons, they're flying and coming back. This is where we are attacking. Our agencies are attacking, but not before. It's the radicalization phase that we need to attack.